So did anyone else get a bit of a chuckle when they were going down the list of the things that the 1st Brigade stopped? They were like guns, hot air balloons, really intelligent professors, and whores. So with this month's chapter of Attack on Titan, it definitely feels as though it's once again following this structure of this political, like, planning and whatnot. And as far as, like, plot progression, it really didn't go too far with the plot. Overall, I felt as though it was focusing more on setting things up and coming up with a plan so that way they know what they're going to do when they finally start storming. And it gave us a little bit of foreshadowing and a little bit of, I guess, hints here and there. But I definitely got to say, as though with this month's chapter, it feels as though it's definitely time to move forward and take action with the plan that they have. Head towards the castle, wherever they got to do. Because at this point, it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's very good to set things up and explain things, but at the same time, you also ideally want to be in motion at the same time, head towards there, and maybe give us the explanation as we're getting there or while we're there, because remember, we still got to head out there wherever they're going to go. So when it comes to this chapter, I definitely felt as though, while it was still going along a proper structure, and it was giving us vital information, it definitely felt as though, yeah, you guys are totally, it feels as though it's stalling at this point. Like, we're sitting in this place for quite a while now. This is like the third or fourth chapter in a row, so 3 or 4 months in a row that we're just sitting here planning, and definitely I would ideally like to eventually move on and progress the story overall. But there were definitely a few gems and a few plot points that are very noteworthy to mention. For starters, we find out the truth about the Reyes family, that they are pretty much indeed the true royal family of the kingdom, and it makes you think automatically, okay, if they're the true family, why aren't they sitting on the throne? Is it that the king is a Reyes? Because it kind of would make sense in a way when we saw the king that he was like the president and everything. Maybe he's the true father to Historia or something. Maybe that guy that we saw back then wasn't actually her father. He was just playing pretend because, remember, they were taking out the whores and stuff like that. And maybe, I don't know, Historia's mom was a whore or something. I mean, if you look at the king, he kind of looks similar to Historia in a way. I mean, he has the light hair, kind of has a similar facial structure. So you never know. Maybe he is a Reyes, and that's why the Reyes family is indeed the true family. Maybe he has a different name. It could be multiple things, but definitely that was a very important aspect because it later defines the plan that they're ultimately going to come up with to pretty much overthrow the kingdom. Because at this point, it has been, especially the last few months, them internally figuring out how they're going to solve the problems within the walls before they could fight, you know, the Titans outside of the walls. And I guess it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because, you know, they need to do this. They need to get rid of the common enemy that they all have within the walls before they can go out and fight the big threat. But at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, anybody that is a fan and just overall wants to go through the story is going to be like, yo, where's some Titans? I mean, just think about this being in the anime. A lot of the casual people that love Attack on Titan and the things, the fans that made it famous are going to be looking at these chapters like, yo, how about we get a move on things? But then again, like I said, it's not that this is actually bad stuff. It's just that you would ideally want to move forward with the plot progression because if anything, what it does is that it stops the plot from progressing. You get information, but overall, you're not moving forward. We also find out a little bit more about Erwin and how, like, it definitely attributes to his coldness and who he ultimately becomes because we find out he's pretty much, in a sense, responsible for his father's death. His father told him the secret. He pretty much told people around there and ended up getting his father killed in what was supposed to be an accident, but of course he finds out later that it was, you know, a murder and the government went after him. And that kind of got me thinking a little bit because we see that scene and I wouldn't be surprised. I think that was Erwin's father that was being tortured in the little scene that they were showing when they were talking about the people that the 1st Brigade took out. And it's making a lot more sense regarding Eren's father because Eren's father was a very, you know, intelligent professor. And when you go back and think back, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Eren's father was very frantic. He was in a rush. He seemed like he had to escape. He had to get away. He was nervous. He was frantic. Everything about it. And you look back, yeah, if they were going after the guns, the hot air balloons, the scientists, the whores, then they definitely went after Eren's father, and that's why he was going crazy, and he was like, yo, I gotta give this to my son, because they're gonna kill me, because they want to stop anything from, you know, pretty much taking away their prestige. If, let's just say they got rid of the Titans someday, it feels as though they almost want the Titans at this point. This kind of chapter shows the darkness of humanity and the greed, because they don't want the Titans to go, because the Titans go, Survey Corps, well, we don't really need you anymore. Like, a lot of these people won't be needed. Most of these people within the walls, not the Survey Corps, the you know, the officers that are inside the walls, and all these people inside the walls, they won't have that power that they once had because there's no longer a need to hide from the Titans. So in a way, they're like, As long as the Titans are on the other side of the wall, we don't have a problem. We'll stay in these walls for the rest of our lives. Eren's father was one of those people that was trying to put a stop to that, get rid of the Titans, and they weren't having it, and they were probably after him. And if Eren did indeed kill his father, maybe after he turned into a Titan, then he probably stopped his father from getting killed by them, but ultimately still killed his father, if he, of course, indeed was responsible for his death. What was up with all the torture in this chapter? I mean, I know Hanji's a sick motherfucker, but goddamn. I mean, well, to be fair, she did feel bad to a certain degree for the guy. They just kept on ripping his fingernails off. And you look at Levi, and I could swear that Levi's design in this particular chapter and everything, his gestures and his hand movements, looked identical to Dexter from the Showtime series. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that one about the serial killer. He has the apron, he has the gloves, and he even pulls the glove down like Dexter. I was like, yeah, Hajime Isayama, you've been watching a little too much Dexter. Just don't pull a Season 8 on us, please. And in a nutshell, with this chapter, very useful information to a certain degree. Definitely the stuff with Historia, finding out about her family and the plan that they're setting up, because now, I just don't see in a way their plan going full forward. It's going to be a big massacre. I can tell you right now, I definitely don't see everything going peachy keen with, like, turning Historia basically into the person that's going to be the next royalty. And even if they do succeed in turning her into, like, the next king or the next, queen or the next ruler overall of the walls and whatnot, they expose everything. Just, like, wouldn't that make them, in a way, the same thing of what the government originally was, with their, like, taking power? Of course, they wouldn't do the same dirty deeds, and they would still ideally be focusing on getting rid of the Titans, but I could totally see, like, there's going to be a big massacre, and, like, again, this goes into a very political thing. I feel as though Attack on Titan, while in the beginning of the series, it had the politics spread around, but it never really focused as much on the politics as it is now, like the last few chapters in this chapter. It feels as though it's definitely going into a political point, and I can totally see why some people will be like, I hate these chapters, they're boring, blah, blah, blah. To a certain degree, yeah, I'm not, like, as enthusiastic about the manga right now, but again, that's enjoyment versus the actual quality of what's going on. And we are getting information, we're getting useful information, we're advancing in certain areas, but it does feel as though the plot overall, moving forward, definitely could go a lot quicker. It definitely feels as though it's a bit slower than what it was, like, 4 or 5 months ago. So I'm gonna give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Some good stuff in there. Overall, it felt as though there was a lot, way too much torture scenes, especially with Hanji and Levi. They just kept torturing him, almost felt like it was for no reason for a certain, period of time. So there was some stuff that definitely felt unneeded and a bit dragged, but we did get some very useful information about the Reyes family, a little bit about Erwin's backstory, how, pretty much he was responsible for his father's death, and, little stuff like that. So we did get some good information in this one. Just hopefully, now, with the end of this chapter, they will go forward, move forward with their plan, and try to, combat within the walls and get rid of the government so we can focus on the bigger issue, the Titans. Oh, quickly want to mention, what was up with that awkward troll face from Armin when he was talking about, yeah, maybe we could do something sneaky and blame it on the government? Like, when the fuck was Armin that sadistic and fucked up in the head? And then the troll face, I was kind of like, Isayama, you're getting a little creepy with us, bro. Stop watching that Dexter. But let me know what you guys think about this chapter. First of all, do you feel as though their plan is foolproof to pretty much overthrow the government and make Historia the new leader pretty much of the walls and whatnot? Do you think that, like, to a certain degree, doesn't it feel as though they're pretty much doing similar to what the old government, the government that's right now, did? Also, do you think that Eren's father was on the run from the 1st Brigade when we see him in those flashbacks that he's frantic and he's quickly trying to give Eren the serum? Do you think that they were after him and ultimately either they got him or Eren killed him in the end? And your overall thoughts of the chapters. Do you feel as though this latest chapter alongside the past few ones have been slow? They've been boring? Do you feel as though they're just not what you're looking forward to? Again, me personally, I'm not as, like, I'm not having as much of a good time with them as I used to, but I still feel as though the quality is still there. It's just going into a political direction and solving some problems, so that way later on it's kind of like, well, the government was doing this, so why didn't they do that? It's like, yeah, you got to do these things. If not, you're going to end up with plot holes and a lot of bullshit later on. That's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up if you're hoping that next week they spring into action, get going, and start to throw this government overboard, because it's kind of like, now's the time. We've been setting things up, some setups here and there. Let's move on it and let's act on it. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.